bring in Nationals member for Gippsland, Darren Chester. Darren, thanks very much for your time. Give us the latest from the ground. What's the latest on the fire threat?
Well, thanks, Kieran. But it was all quiet here until a couple of minutes ago, and the siren's just gone off here at the Lakes Entrance Fire Station. I understand they've been asked to call out to an unrelated activity, to a motor vehicle accident in this case, but it just reinforces the fact that our Country Fire Authority volunteers have been extremely busy over the last 24 to 48 hours. Here in Gippsland, yesterday the weather conditions were pretty shocking with high winds and warm conditions. We had a few fires get out of control. One around the Briagalong area, which is near Sale. For people who don't know Gippsland that well, it's a small area, a lot of bush around that. And that's about 5,500 hectares, and that's still yet to be under control. And we lost a home in that fire. And then there's some other fires around the Gippsland Lakes towns, around Loch Sport, which caused a great deal of concern yesterday as well, and they're still causing concern for our volunteers and our professional firefighters. There's a lot of resources on the ground here, obviously trying to help out to make sure they get on top of them, and we're actually quite hopeful that weather forecast you just crossed from, we're hopeful that weather forecast will deliver a couple of inches of rain, and that will put a dampener on those fires being luck at all.
Did it come as a surprise to many of the residents and those facing the fire threat that this has come in spring a bit earlier than normal?
Yeah, it is a bit earlier than normal, Kieran. It's not unheard of in our part of the world. Keep in mind, we've had a very dry spring. September was one of the driest on records, and after a couple of really wet years, so it's nothing like sort of 2019, 2020, when we had the black summer, where we had those drought years and a lot of build-up of dry fuel in the bush, and we knew we were going to have a bad season that year. The last couple of years have been quite wet, so those wet conditions have been great for farmers. They've created a lot of pasture growth, but of course, if you're getting pasture growth, you're also getting growth in the bush. So we're seeing grass fires, scrub fires, a real risk this year, and it's a bit earlier than usual, but we did have quite severe conditions yesterday. We had high winds, temperatures between 25 and 30 degrees, and I guess it's a bit of a warning to us that we've got a dry summer being forecast, and we do live in a fire-prone area here in Gippsland, and we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to reduce that risk, and that means cleaning up around our own properties, but also encouraging the state government to clean up on their property, clean up on the state parks and national parks, which obviously are a major risk for fires as well.
One house lost in this fire, 5,000 hectares burned. It's a bit of a reminder how quickly these things can happen off the back of the events on the weekend. The Chief Officer of the CFA has said to Victorians, please be prepared. Do you get the sense, you said that Gippsland's a fire-prone area, are your constituents and the landowners, are they well versed when it comes to preparing for this?
Look, it's a really good point you make, Kieran. We do have a lot of people who've lived here for a long time. So the people who are, residents been here for 10, 20, 30, sometimes 50 years, they know what to expect. So they're preparing their properties and reducing the fuel load and making sure they're ready for any eventualities. Funnily enough, out of the COVID years, we also had new residents come to our area. So for some of them, this might be their first real bushfire season. So we need to make sure that we're working together as a community to do the hazard reduction around properties, around private properties. But I have been very disappointed. In fact, I've been quite critical of the state government's failure over a long time now to do the hazard reduction burns and the mechanical clearing around critical assets. We need to do more in terms of prevention, and what we're seeing here in a place like Gippsland, where, for example, the East Gippsland Shire has 75% of the land mass is Crown land. That 75% of the land is managed by the state government. We're not seeing enough fuel reduction burns. We're not seeing enough hazard reduction going on. We're not seeing enough mechanical clearing around those critical assets, and we need to do better.
1,000 campers were stranded at one point yesterday. For viewers watching around the country, Gippsland is a popular area, safe for long weekends like we're having at the moment for campers to get out of Melbourne. And it was a bit of a dicey period at one point, but authorities took the necessary precautions.
Oh, absolutely. We were coming off the September school holidays, and that rolled into the AFL Grand Final long weekend. So a lot of people quite rightly took the opportunity, because the first 2 days of the long weekend, they took the opportunity to make the most of some beautiful weather. It was lovely spring weather and people having a great time. But once that fire got going in the lowlands around Briagalong, that's just on the edge of the high country, if you like, where the fire can go up into the bush, where there's a lot of campers, a lot of people out enjoying themselves. It was important the message got out straight away to let people know it was time to get out of there. That was very much a precautionary decision to make sure that people had plenty of time to pack up their camping gear and get out anyway. And look, most people would have been heading home anyway for the long weekend, but we made sure that people were well informed. The emergency alerts go out, and people are used to those alerts here in our community. It's important that those decisions are made early so people have every chance to get to safety, and thankfully that wasn't a problem at all. But sadly we have lost one home already. That's one home, that's one family that's lost their property, and we don't want to see any more of that this summer. So it's as much as we possibly can do around prevention, around clearing around properties and getting ourselves ready for what looks like being a long hot summer. And we've got our fingers crossed, Kieran. We hope this weekend's little cold spell brings us a nice drop of rain to freshen things up and put those fires out.
Yeah, indeed. A bit of a wake-up call, but hopefully the weather helps. Now, I don't want to get into the politics. We want to talk about the fires today, but I do want to get a sense from you. You were critical of the state government, the various approach to land use and management in the context of the fires. But I spoke to you the day Daniel Andrews resigned. Just give me a sense of the reaction in Gippsland to the fact that Victoria has entered now a post-Andrews era.
Well, as I indicated, I guess, on that day, there was a lot of cheering across Gippsland. Daniel Andrews was not a good Premier for Gippsland. Daniel Andrews was the Premier who made the decision to shut down our native hardwood timber industry. We feel that our community is less safe now as a direct result of that decision. So, for example, if we do have a severe bushfire season and those timber workers aren't there in the bush anymore, we don't have their bulldozers, we don't have their harvesting equipment, we don't have those skilled workers in the bush to keep our town safe. So no one is going to miss Daniel Andrews very much here in Gippsland, and I'd just say that we need now to work with the new Premier to get a better decision. We have a world-class and sustainable timber industry here in Gippsland. We should keep that industry going, because if we don't use our own native hardwood in a sustainable way, we will simply raid other states or raid other countries. So right now in Victoria, there is timber coming from Tasmania, New South Wales, Queensland into our state for processing, on top of Australia already importing timber from around the world from places which have poor environmental protocols than we have here in Victoria.
While we've been talking, we've got pictures of the Prime Minister. He's in Hobart. He's attending a Yes campaign rally. It's the final fortnight now of the campaign, and now cameras moving around a bit, but the viewers getting a sense of how live TV is put together sometimes, a bit rough and ready with this camera work. However, I'm trying to get a better position to hear from the Prime Minister, having a chat to some of the locals there. Why do you think that the no vote is struggling as much as it is, Darren Chester? What's been the flaw in the I should say the yes vote? Why is the yes vote struggling as much as it is? And what's been the flaw in the yes campaign?
Well, early voting centres have opened around Australia Day. I've got 5 here in Gippsland. I've seen a bit of activity today already. My concern with this whole debate, virtually from day one, is it has been particularly divisive. I think the Prime Minister has made a poor judgment call in relation to this issue. He has put race at the centre of our democracy in a way which Australians are not very comfortable with. And the lecturing tone, the hectoring by the elites in the metropolitan media and some of the major corporations has fallen on Australian people on deaf ears, I would largely say, in my community. Now, I've got no idea what the national vote is going to be. It's going to be obviously a decision for a couple of weeks' time. But here in my community, the feedback has been, well, we want to work constructively and practically to improve the outcomes for all vulnerable people, Indigenous people and other vulnerable people, but we don't see how enshrining a new bureaucracy in the Constitution is going to achieve anything. So there's a lot of reluctance in my community, notwithstanding the fact that there will be, a percentage of people, quite rightly, who will make up their own mind and decide to go the other way. But I think the vote here in Gippsland will be quite strongly towards the no.